How's it going, everybody? I know it's been a minute, but I am back. And yeah, Avatar the Last Airbender brought me back too. Had to do my review on this. Um, I wanted to say, starting off, I'm a huge fan of Avatar the Last Airbender. You've probably heard me reference it before in a past video. Maybe I haven't. I thought about doing content here on that channel, but I'm like, there's so many channels that do it already. If I do it, it'll be once in a blue moon. But it is like my top, either my second, maybe third top fantasy fictional thing of all time. Um, and if you couldn't tell. But anyway, that being said, I want to get that out the way because you have some people who like to say, "Oh, well, you're not a real fan," or "You don't really know what you're talking about," and all that type of stuff. I might get some things wrong, sure, but no, this is love this show. Some of my favorite things: Star Wars, Mortal Kombat, Last Airbender. So, I feel like people are blowing this show out of proportion. I really liked the show. I did. Did it have its issues? Absolutely. It definitely has some issues, but I think overall I thoroughly enjoyed the show. There was one episode where it was almost insufferable, but right afterwards, it was back to back just goodness. At least for me. I know that this show isn't for everyone, and the purpose of this video is not to like say that, oh, your opinion, you can't have it, or it doesn't matter, or it's invalid. I think that this show is getting a lot of hate from some people for no reason. Now I know that people have the right to say their opinions, like I'm about to. And there are some people who genuinely did not like the show and have every right to. I see the many issues that, to be honest, had I heard of without watching the show, I probably wouldn't have liked the show just from hearing about it. But watching it for me works. But I think there's some people who's just kind of jumping on the bandwagon of hate because that's just the newest thing lately. We got to hate on everything. We got to talk about everything negatively. And this is my video kind of towards that, just in case there's someone who's on the fence about the show and all they're seeing is negative reviews. Maybe my review will kind of change your mind, perhaps. Or maybe you've already watched it and maybe you kind of was like, oh, it was okay, it was nice. But then after watching so many bad reviews, now it's shifted your opinion. That's happened to me before. Um, Again, hopefully this video brings a balance. Now, let's talk about the bad first. Let's get that out of the way. That way, the taste that I leave in your mouth is the good. What I think they did right. I think a lot of videos love to end off with the bad, and I think that just leaves a negative taste in your mouth because if you start off with the good and then you go straight into the bad and then you rant, because naturally when we're talking about bad things, we rant a lot easier than if we're talking about good things. Let's be honest. You're more likely to rant about something that irritated you than you are to rant about something that brought you joy. And there might be a few people out there who can equally do both, or maybe they talk more about the joy than the dislikes and discomforts. But that being said, there might be people who genuinely just didn't like one or two things, but by the time they finish ranting about it in their video, you don't even want to watch it no more. I've had that happen to some of my favorite YouTubers where they'll talk about something. They're like, I only had like two issues with it, but they go so long talking about it. You're like, I don't want to watch it no more. So let's talk about the bad. I want to say yes. Some of the dialogue, a lot of people I hear or I see, they're saying, "Oh, the dialogue is absolute trash." It has its moments. It has its moments where it's really bad. But I think majority of the dialogue was solid. But say that for later. It definitely has its moments where it was bad. There's times where there's just a lot of exposition dump, heavy exposition dump for no reason. They definitely could have fleshed it out more. Um, it's not constant. I see a lot of people out, and this is where I feel like they're exaggerating, talking about that. Oh, every word that comes out of people's mouth is basically conveying some feeling that they have, and that not one emotion is left unsaid. Everything is spilled out. Yes, it has moments where they spill out emotions that could have just been kept inside, but it's not that bad. I think the only person who does that is Zuko. And if that's the main person y'all are going off of, then I would ask you, were you really paying attention to the cartoon show? Because in the cartoon show, Zuko spilled out every damn emotion when he was angry. And then he had a lot of other emotions that was deep down inside that got spilled out later, but a lot of it was just the anger and the hurt, the anger and the hurt. Um, that was Zuko. I did not see I didn't see any other character truly doing that except for maybe Katara a little bit, but I'll get into that later because that's another bad for me is what they did with Katara's character with her mother. Um, but yeah, I did not feel like everyone was just spewing out emotions. Maybe that's just me, but it worked for me. I didn't feel like every emotion was just, spelled out letter by letter or how they were feeling. I felt like there was a lot that was just the moment of. And then I felt like there was some of it where, okay, to be honest, the show took a whole season to spell out an emotion. They are working with probably half the time. So some of these emotions they're gonna have to hurry up and go ahead and get out on the table. And yes, they might have thought of us a little slower than we are. We could have put it together without them saying it. But I think it was the issue of okay, well, we need the audience to understand that this is how they feel so that later this can build up. But I didn't feel like they robbed us of every single hidden emotion. That's just me. Anyway, I was supposed to be talking about the bad. Um, yeah, there are some things that are spilled out. That's a little too much. There's a lot of expedition. I mean, yeah, expedition. There's a lot of exposition dump, which is kind of cringe at times. Like Gran and her flashbacks, or not flashbacks, but her breakdown of the Avatar and all of that. It's like, oh, it's kind of cool, but kind of not needed, and just feels awkwardly said. Um, the next issue, actually, I'm not seeing too many people complain about this one, so this is my personal nitpick. The martial arts wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. I think that it had really good martial arts in it, very good. I'm more on the director and yeah, the director, because I feel like the scenes and how they were shot, you can't get the grasp of some of the martial arts. It's done very fast, as it probably should, because a lot of people complained about the trailer they released about a week or two ago, and how it looked very slow, and they'd had a slow mo shot, and it didn't feel right. No, this was fast like it should, but it was fast and cut. They had a lot of the cut, cut, cut. I hate that. I feel like certain martial arts scenes should be done in one sequence, especially when it's not even that hard of a move. It's not like, I took martial arts at one point, and I ain't trying to act like I know everything about it because it's been a long time. However, I do know that there are plenty of martial arts moves that you can do in one take that's not like this impossible anime level martial arts. Because I would understand, oh, doing this kind of exaggerated martial art thing, yeah, maybe a cut or two would be good to give that idea of it because you probably did it in two or three scenes. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. There was some really cool martial arts scenes in there, but it was too much of it. I was like, oh, they went just a little too fast, too much cut, and I can't exactly see what's going on. And the show, what drew me into this show first was the martial arts. Like I said, martial arts has been something a part of me um, for a while now. Fell off of it in personal practice. However, I still enjoy it and appreciate it. And one of the best things about this show, in my opinion, was the martial arts and how they incorporated it into the bendings. It- we didn't get good focus on that. I didn't like that. I wanted to be able to actually see, you know, someone break down the differences of bend. Like if anything needed exposition done, it was probably just somebody explaining, the way of water a little bit, like Paco or the other lady. I forgot the one who was teaching Katara how to heal. Um, One of them could have talked about, how it's based off of Tai Chi and it's Tai Chi, right? Um, but there was, of all the things that I felt like would have been nice to just have a little conversation on a little bit. Thought that would have been, or maybe just a focus on when someone is doing a move instead of we slowly seeing this as she's trying to bend the water ball, which there's nothing wrong with that. I could have done some more slow mo scenes, or not even really slow mo, but just focus shots of someone performing a martial arts to bend, a martial art move to bend, or a set of martial arts moves to bend. And I don't mean like the 2010 movie where we need 20 moves to raise a piece of rock and 10 people to raise a piece of rock. That's not what I mean. I literally just mean like, there was this one scene, actually, they did really good with it. Zuko, when he's getting ready to shoot the fireball at Aang and Katara and Sokka while they're on Appa, and he does a quick little cool move. I like it was focused, there was no cut, and it was still fast. We didn't need to slow down. But I was like, "Ooh, that was nice. That was sharp. That was sexy." How he did this quick little thing, and then he shot a huge fireball. You felt the power in it because we got to see an actual full move. Like, okay, when you look at like the old Jackie Chan movies, the old Jet Li movies, when he did his moves, they didn't slow down the moves, but there was a focus on it. It was the highlight of that scene was the move they were performing. Not I feel like this show sometimes still had the awesome moves in the background, but it was overshadowed by the actual special effects, which I thought were phenomenal. Or them just doing the cut paste, like choppy action sequences. And I didn't that was my thing. So and then last, I felt like there were certain times, and I'll talk about it in a good way, where they, cut certain episodes and put them together and deleted other episodes or, moved them around where it worked. But there was way too many that didn't work. Episode 5 is my least favorite episode, The Spirit Away. Some people this worked. For me, it did not. I felt a little weird about it, and I was like, to be honest, in Avatar, the episode already was kind of a slower episode than the original show. Um, I wouldn't say boring necessarily, but it was slow, and I didn't appreciate it until later when I just wanted to jump into the lore. Uh, However, in this show, they made that episode somehow more boring than I feel like it needed to be. And I feel like because they were trying to fit so much, they showed several different spirits. They did not need to show the owl spirit from the library. I forget how to say his name, but they didn't need to show him so early. Um, but yeah, that was my issue. That episode was it was kind of interesting, but then it was kind of like, okay, this is kind of dragging along. I'm ready to, because we're doing too much. We don't need all of this, and I get it. Again, they're working with less time, so they're trying to really introduce us to this whole spirit world, and I think that was pretty good how they did it because they showed so many spirits, but they could have shown other different spirits without doing that. For instance, if they wanted, since they take stuff from um, well, actually, I noticed. I think they was going to do this, but I think the budget messed them up. Because I was about to say, if they wanted to show all these different spirits, because I don't think it was just fan service on why they chose the three main spirits for this one that we've heard of. If they wanted to expand on just how big the world is in the spirit world, they could have had little spirits running around. And then I remember they did. We just didn't see them. I think that was a budget thing. They saved all their budget for that beautiful owl. It was really nice, and the face dealer Cole, and I forgot the other one's name. But anyway, Haggai, I think. Anyway, um, they those looked great, but I was like, oh, instead y'all could have taken one or two of them out, especially the owl in my opinion. Like it was not needed, and y'all could have had like little spirits running around. That's how you could have given us this world or this illusion that there's a big world out there with a bunch of spirits. They still managed to do that, but in doing so, they used three big spirits that could have been spaced out, or at least one of them saved for later. And just if you wanted to still do the face stiller and that bear, the one that turns into a panda, um, you could have did that maybe together. But anyway, that was my issue. It's just like some of the stuff I felt like, okay, y'all bringing this in from. Oh, speaking of which, secret tunnels that wasn't smart. And I think that was no, that was the King Boomy episode. Which King Boomy worked for me by the way. I really liked it. But the Secret Tunnels was not smart because they took out the main. The point of the Secret Tunnels was to tease the love life of Katara and Aang, and they did not have that here. Now I realized they probably didn't want to do that because Aang looks very young as he should, and Katara kind of looks older as she would, according even to the show and their ages. So it probably would have been weird to actually see that in live action, but then just don't do the secret tunnels because it wasn't supposed to come in until later anyway. And by the time later comes, both actors are going to look a little bit older. So it would still look appropriate for Katara to be with Aang a little bit, or that teased a little. Instead, y'all brought it in, and you, I feel, kind of missed the purpose with it. You did a different purpose with, Sokka and Katara, and that was nice. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't like that. I feel like no, y'all should have just saved this because they could have gone through any tunnel, and it just been a secret tunnel, a normal secret tunnel. There's plenty throughout Avatar, um, but instead they had to do the secret tunnel and then change the whole purpose in which it's for. It's just not his best. Now they did give Katara and Aang a intimate moment later, which I really appreciated, but I think the secret tunnels would have still been nice, um, if they just saved it for later and did it. We didn't need it now. Period. So yeah, that would be my bad things. The martial arts, I feel like they could have had more focus on it at times. I still love that they had real martial arts, and I love the effects and how it looked. But I felt like the few moves where they focused on it, the bending felt more powerful. And had they continued that through all their scenes, kind of, and or at least just not done so much choppy, then that would have been better. How they cut the stories didn't work for me with the secret tunnels and whatever I mentioned earlier. Anyway, and yeah, the dialogue at times felt a little bit like it was too much exposition. Some of it was corny at times, but it was just very few lines that were kind of corny to me. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, that's basically what they said in the show. So what more do I expect? Now, here's where I have my small intermission, and I'll go into the good. My intermission. Guys, what do we want? Because there's so many people who just they dislike, and I understand. Some of y'all are truly understand. Like almost every, I think every single one of my fans, every single one of my friends, um, do not like the idea of a live action remake of animation of any type. Understandable. I have always been the oddball out that have looked forward to a live action adaptation of some of my favorite shows, like Ben 10, and we got that. And I don't have much evidence of why it will be good, other than in my head, I'm like, if they're able to capture the same elements and story, but do it live action, you have a recipe for some awesome stuff. Like Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat movie was good. It has definitely has some issues, but that's where I get to. There's worse out there, and that's not to say, oh, it's okay the mistakes they did in the show, but there are worse. Let's look at the Mortal Kombat movie that came out a few years ago. I was so looking forward to that, and then they decided to bring in a new character that wasn't even needed because they felt like you need a new character to introduce a person to the world. So yeah, this show messed up with assuming that we needed heavy exposition dump, but at least they didn't create a new character and say we're gonna tell the story through that character. Just saying. Um, and I still like that movie too, but nowhere near as much as I enjoyed this show, because this show tried to stick to the source materials, and that much I appreciate it. Even when they chop things up and it didn't work for the best, I at least appreciate the fact that they wanted to include that. They didn't have to. They could have been as bad as the first one, and there's so many people talking about it's just as bad as the first one. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to have actual talk, and you explain, break down how it's worse than the first one, how it's even near the first one. Because the first one said source material. This is source material. They didn't care. They threw it. They didn't care about one thing. They couldn't even get the names pronounced right. Ong. Come on now. This show actually gave us a lot of characters, a lot of story elements that were true to the actual thing. They didn't completely change up how it works. They didn't say, "Oh, for this we're gonna change up how bending works altogether." Or how now they have some small tweaks, like how he gets an avatar state. I think it works. They wanted to bring a also. They wanted to make a more realistic, serious approach to, or take a more realistic, serious approach to the show. If they would have did a 1-to-1, I guarantee you there would have been majority of you mad saying they didn't do anything new. What was the point of me watching this? Yes, that was great, but they didn't add anything new. I know there's so many people out there, it's a ridiculous amount of people who say that. So they tried to change it up a little bit, give you a fresh take on it, and they made it a little bit darker. Had they kept the original 1-to-1 silliness, there would have been a lot of people, probably even myself, who would have been like, this is kind of goofy. I enjoyed this, but maybe it's just my childhood me. I don't think I'm gonna be back for later. Because I rewatched Avatar a lot, and there's a lot of episodes in season one that I skip. I don't skip anything through season two and three, but season one to me has a lot of the lore and important stuff, yes, but also kind of childish, more slower takes. That when I'm rewatching it, because I already know it, I don't need it. I skip through it. It's like rewatching Lord of the Rings. Most of the first movie, I'm probably gonna skip through unless I'm doing one of my, oh, I haven't watched the trilogy in a while, so I want to watch it from beginning to end. And yeah, like I'm just being honest. I know that I'm not the only person who, when they go back to rewatch something, some of the more okay, so if we already know the show and they took the more childish approach to season one, like the actual season one version of the show, where it doesn't really mature into the end of the season, there's there would have been so many people complaining, or at least saying, "Oh, that was decent, but it's not really for me. It's good for the kids." They're trying to get the older generation, the people who grew up with the show. They know who they're making it for. And yes, there's some fan servicey things, but I think it's appropriate. And then I think there's just some things that are not appropriately handled, you know? Like again, the spirits and how they did it. But I think we needed a new little touch on this. Something a little different. Let's make it more serious. Let's watch people burn from the ground up. Let's show Ozai and Azula a little bit early so that we can, and that was weird to me, but I liked it, so that we can build to how much of a challenge Azula will be later. You know, I'm not too much of a fan of us not seeing her blue fire, but I like how we see a spark of it. And I'm like, okay, that's gonna make sense later when she's fully has her blue flames. It'll just showcase that she's matured into another level, that she has so much thirst for succeeding, that it just burns her hot. So I'm asking, what do we want from our shows? Now, some of you might still be on, we just don't need the remake, and that's fine. To those people, I don't have much to say, because I've lived with people like that my whole life who just feel no matter what I say, there's just no reason for a remake. I would argue slightly that oh, we continue the story because animation from the early 2000s is only going to get you so far. Um, Another 10 years from now, at least this show, if it succeeds and continues going, will introduce us to our kids. Now, yes, me personally, I've already introduced my son to the cartoon and this live action show. But I'm just saying, let's be honest, like the cartoon's not gonna stay in the it's gonna stay in the hearts of us. But then we're gonna just look like our parents when they was introducing us to old cartoons they grew up. We might watch it, but there's no real interest in it. So at least this is keeping it alive. That was my argument to people with the Color Purple remake. um, at least they cared about the source material to include a lot of it, even if they botched it. Think about it. Again, not making an excuse like, oh, you should just botch things up terribly, because there's things in Mortal Kombat that they botched up, and I think it was for the worst. And I would have rather them not even touched it, like bringing in Melina just to kill her, and then us not having Katana. Anyway, we're not on that. We'll talk about Mortal Kombat some other time. But look, yes, they botched some things, but a lot of it they got right. There were moments in the show where I was saying the next words that they were gonna say, and I enjoyed that. That made me happy. I was like, okay, yeah, I know exactly. And then I'm finishing the sentence. I'm right there. I'm locked in with them. And we got to see the live action. I mean, we got to see the martial arts in live action. The show is centered around it. We got to see some amazing martial arts. I have my issues with it, but we still got to see it. There are benefits to certain shows seeing live action. Like, for example, there wouldn't be much benefit to seeing Naruto in live action. Yes, it has martial arts, but it has ninjutsu, which is its own thing. um, and this show is based off of something that's actually done in real life. So it would be amazing to see martial artists imitate this show and showcase, the things that we've seen. And then we also see the cool bending effects, things that we always imagine and stuff as kids growing up, or at least I did. Now we can actually see it on the big screen. Why not? Things I think the show did good. The acting. The acting was pretty spot on. Some of them, their acting was a little, shaky. I think it's just they need to grow into the character a little more. The emotions. Even if you argue that there's too much exposition, they don't leave you to have any emotions. I would say to you, I think you're turning off your brain for some of it. Like I think you got agitated and then you turned off your emotions, because there was plenty of moments where I got gripped by that emotion again. Because yes, there's context. Like the Iroh scene and Leaves from the Vine being played. There's deeper context, from years and years of what that song means or what it means to me now. So sure, that was already going to trigger the emotions, but you could just put Leaves on the Vine and it's not going to necessarily, no, that song gonna get me sad every time. But you can just put on Leaves from the Vine. It's not gonna give me the same emotion of actually feeling what the show wanted me to feel, unless I'm back in the context of it again. I think they nailed it. Hopefully, we still get our true Leaves of the Vine moment later in season two. Um, but I think they nailed the atmosphere, pulling me in, feeling sorrowful for Uncle Iroh and his loss, and creating a deeper connection that Zuko and Iroh have always had, because you should seen way back that there was a connection there. I think it served its purpose. I think UA's dying sacrifice served this purpose. The scene captivated exactly what I needed. Zuko and his fight with Ozai served its purpose. Zula and her being challenged from her dad, it served its purpose. It gripped the emotion immediately, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting exactly what they're feeling, because the acting, the writing for those moments was on point to me. And the writing wasn't even that bad. Like, people keep saying the writing was so bad. I'm like, how can the writing be too bad when it's going off of the show? So the actual writing, the story, what is happening, you can't judge it without judging the original creators. You can judge some of the bigger writer choices that they decided to do, like changing things up about the spirit, not about the spirit world, but the spirits that they decided to show. Yes, we can judge that writing. Certain exposition dumps, you can judge that writing. But when I hear people talking about, oh, the whole writing in this entire show was garbage, that doesn't make sense to me, because majority of it was based off of, if not damn near quoted one to one lines from the show. So what do y'all want? Do y'all want the one to one representation, or do y'all want something fresh to give us a reason to watch the show, or do y'all want, like, and I get it. I'm not, trying to be annoying, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that's like, no, I just want a good adaptation of it. I know it wasn't going to be one on one, but and I'm right there with you. Like, I can't rate the show a 10 or even a 9. I get it. Like, there are some things they just should not have touched on, or if they was gonna touch, take their time to flesh it out. And I didn't need a one to one either, so I get it. But there's some people out there, a good portion of them, who are just hard into it. So many YouTube videos left and right that's like going hard into this show. I don't get it, man. I feel like it's just that we love to hate period that we're in, where nothing can be good. Um, Artists, when they drop music, we got to rip it apart. Verse by verse, line by line, song by song. TV shows we got to rip apart. Movies we got to rip apart left and right. Comic books we have to tear apart left and right. Like, games, and I get it. Some of them they're doing it to themselves. Some of them, like Mortal Kombat, the game that just came out. I think it plays great, but as far as actual game, it sucks. There's not much you can do on it. The fighting part is fun and it's really good, but the entirety of the game. So I get it. There's some things where we should be opening our mouths, because these corporations are taking our money, and they should know, hey, if I want to keep taking this person's money, I need to actually cater to what they actually want and not what I think they want. However, then we get lost in the, oh, everything is woke, everything is this, oh, they just don't know how to make good things anymore. I'm like, if you say that about everything, are you truly enjoying anything? For instance, the Sokka thing. Yes, it kind of sucks they didn't have Sokka's sexism in there. But then I started thinking about it, I'm like, to be honest, I think that was the best choice. Because are we not in the culture of both cancel culture slash woke culture, and oh my gosh, everything is woke, I gotta be anti woke about everything? That's what we're in the middle of. So, had they kept Sokka's sexism in there, no one would have looked at it and said, oh, you know what? This is how the character's always been. They would have looked at it and said, oh, here we go again with depicting the man as the a hole. And when it came to Suki challenging him and showing him how to be better than that, basically, and changing his mindset, then it would have just looked at as a feminist thing dropped in. And to be honest, if they was going to touch on that, then they would have had to touch on it truly. The show sprinkled it. They would have actually, like they're flushing out everything else, would have flushed out that moment a little harder, and then people would have been complaining that it was trying to be woke and trying to correct men, blah 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 blah. I think them leaving it out altogether was the safest approach, because you already have people who are being irritated by how much people like Marvel with She-Hulk. That movie irritated me. There was too much of, oh, men are bad, and this feminism kind of thing that they was trying to go for, but it was like it's a different level of feminism, and my wife couldn't even enjoy it. There was just too much going on and what they were trying to do, and I don't think it was being conveyed over how they wanted it to. So yes, I prefer you not even touching on it. To be honest, I prefer you not touching on it than to do it, and it becomes this extra thing. At least they didn't make the whole thing about how sexist Sokka is and how they could have really went there. Instead, they just decided not to touch it, and decided to show his ignorance necessarily, more than just him being sexist. His ignorance and thinking that everything is on me, and Katara, you don't understand because it's all on me. I have to do this, I have to do that, and you don't need to be doing what you're doing. You need to just worry about the war. And then it became, instead of a male versus female thing, it became a what the basis of some sexism is, which is one person in their own mind and ideology and making assumptions and claims on someone else in their own ideology. And it wasn't about different sex, it was about he thinks that this is truly what they need to be focused on, and he's not letting her live out her life and be what she needs to be. That's what you have in sexism too. So they still have his issue there. Instead of him saying, because you're a girl, he just said, we're in a war, so this is what you need to be focused on. You don't need to be doing the bending. I think it still served its purpose. Now, with the Kyoshi Warriors, it does lose the effect of how they fall for each other, but isn't that kind of a breath of fresh air too? Instead, we get um, Suki. Yes, I've seen people talk about, like, oh, Suki just likes everything about him. There was no, growth in there. She just basically immediately fell in love with him. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think that's kind of a breath of fresh air, because I've seen too much media now where it's like trying to the woman's trying to belittle the man, and that's how y'all click together. We won't need to be belittling each other at all, and or too much just throwing man into this box of these toxic masculinity dudes and all that. I think this was a breath of fresh air to not touch on him being sexist or Suki trying to correct him. And instead, they just got infatuated with each other. Genuine love that really happens. I don't, maybe some of y'all's relationships start off toxic, but some of us, we just have, sometimes, we just have genuine connections. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Um, I think it worked out for the best, to be honest. And I think they still have room to later. Maybe Sokka doesn't think, all women or something can do it like that. I don't know. I don't, it will be probably too late to introduce sexism to Sokka now, but his issues are still there. His issues of trying to control what other people should do or what he thinks they should do are still there. And then we still got the sexism with Paco. We still got it, but it didn't need to be everywhere. See, that's my thing. If anything, I think Master Paco's sexism was way more important, because it's also a old generation ideal, and that's what most of our issues are in America right now. Older generations and their ideals of how things should go. And I have respect for older generations. Do not get me wrong, but there's some in there who, there's some people in power who have a lot of ignorance, and they're coming from an older mindset. That was perfect with Master Paco. Now you're not just relating to women, you're relating to everybody who have had to deal with someone who's too stuck on the past. And women are able to connect and say, oh yeah, I've dealt with a lot of old men who don't get it. We didn't need to show also the young man, the old man, and several male figures. I get what I'm trying to say is you don't have too much focus on male character ideologies in this show. So if two of them are sexist, it's kind of extra, and we don't need all of that. You might say, well, that was very important for Sokka's character. I say, how? I never thought about, oh, Sokka, the greatest character arc, the person who went from sexist to respecting women. That's not what I think of Sokka. I think of Sokka as the boy who wanted to be a great warrior and who later turned into a man who was a great warrior. That's what I think about with Sokka. And did we not get the laying foundation of that in Sokka throughout this live action season? I believe so. Um, but again, I know it's an opinion thing, and so I think it's about what do you appreciate about Avatar, and did this show at least accomplish that? For instance, if what you care about Avatar is the lore and the lore on the spirits and stuff, like I do with like Korra, for instance, then yeah, this was it had a letdown because the only time y'all talked about it, y'all kind of botched it up. Um, if what you care about is the character development, then I would think they did pretty good with a lot of it because you already see the laying foundation of, yes, they messed up with the exposition. This is first season. Maybe they'll get better. Yes, some of the best episodes were the ones written by the original creators, but there was other episodes that were still pretty solid, and they weren't written by the original creators. Episode 2 is still pretty good. Episode 7 and 8. My favorite episodes is episode 6, written by original, and episode 8, the season finale. I think they're top tier. So, what is the thing that you wanted from this show? And I would say in each scene, what is the thing that you wanted from that scene, and did it accomplish that? Because if we can at least look at that, then we can start to be a little bit fairer about our judgment of the show versus looking at it in this ideal of, oh, this wasn't perfect, they didn't do this right, they didn't do this right. Then we get into a nitpick, a heavy nitpick, and hey, I nitpick. As you heard at the beginning, I was nitpicking even the martial arts and how they demonstrated it. And a lot of people is like praising it for the martial arts, and I'm not there yet. It was good, but again, I think it was the director and what they chose to do with the actual scenes. But anyway, does it serve its purpose for what you needed in those scenes? Because if so, then is the only thing that you're getting mad at the fact that it did not keep it one to one detail, or are you just never were you never going into this show with an open mindset? That's my challenge to you all, or for everyone to kind of think of. That was my challenge for myself because I saw the bad reviews before I even watched it, and I told myself, you know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna go in with the expectation of this isn't gonna be perfect, but I'm eager to see what they want to do with the show. And when I did that, I was able to go into it and just enjoy what they presented and still had my distaste for things. But I personally feel I had a healthier viewpoint on how the writers handled this show. I had a healthier viewpoint on how the show did overall versus just already going in annoyed. Like, half of you went in already expecting this is going to be garbage. If you go in with that mindset, how can I please you? You know what I'm saying? It's like work for example. If you go into work and you're thinking to myself, "Oh, I'm about to have a crappy day. Oh, this day is done already. Oh man, it's hell." I assure you, your day is going to be hell because your mindset is already thinking like that. You're already locked into all the negatives, and you will only focus on it. I think that's what we do to movies, TV shows, games. We already have such a negative viewpoint that when we go in on it, we just can't take in anything good. I've done that plenty of times, so I'm not judging. I'm just saying, at one point, do we kind of stop and give some of the things that we love a bit more of a chance than to immediately just go in just ready, like, this is gonna be terrible. This is gonna be terrible. This is gonna be horrible. I don't even want to watch it, but I'm gonna click on it anyway and then get mad at everything. Maybe those shows, if you're like that, and there's nothing wrong with that, if you're like, no, I can't handle them taking what I love and trying to redo it again. I can't handle the Color Purple remake. I can't handle a new Avatar. I can't. Then I would suggest just not watching it, wasting your own time getting frustrated, then it's kind of unhealthy. Or waiting a while until you kind of get out of that irritation and then going and trying to watch it. And if you've already watched it, I would suggest, okay, once you cool down and relax, rewatch it and see how you feel. I mean, people I've heard that when they watched something originally, they hated it and they went back and watched it and they're like, actually, this is pretty solid. Or hell, even reverse, like Venom. I first watched it, I was like, okay, I like this movie. I rewatched it and I was like, this is pretty bad. I rewatched it a third time. I was like, this is garbage. I'm never rewatching this movie again. And then I stupidly went out to see Venom 2. But anyway, thank you all for coming by the channel. Thank you for watching this video. Much love, of course. Again, I really appreciate this show. And I really appreciate the creators trying to make the live action show as well. It does have its issues, but I honestly am pretty excited for the future of Avatar the Last Airbender live action and what they can do. Like, I can't wait to see Zuko and Azula fighting in that final Agni Kai battle. I can't wait to see, Aang and Zuka fighting on the drill, outside of the wall. There's so many things that I'm super excited to see. Yes, because of action, but even emotionally, or on a more character development, I can't wait to see Iroh when he's in prison, and Zuko how he realized he messed up and betrayed his uncle. These are moments that I'm super excited to see with actual actors portrayed. So I think there's some things that we can look forward to. I'm definitely am, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully Netflix don't cancel this because people are crying so much. I'll catch y'all later. God bless.